Welcome to the session. You should have the book with you, Man and His Bodies. We are starting a new chapter today. So, just a quick recap. We have studied about the physical body, the etheric body or the etheric double, then the astral body, the mental or the lower mental body, and the causal bodies, right? Let's just quickly keep this slide in front of us. So we are, um so it sort of gives us a placeholder. So these are all the, so we saw the, in the physical plane, we saw there were two bodies, the physical body and the etheric body, then the astral body. Then again in the mental plane, there were two bodies, two distinct bodies. There is the lower mental, or also known as the Rupa, Rupa Sharira, and then the higher mental or the causal body, also known as the Arupa, where we saw in the causal body all the lessons that we learn are stored, all the seeds, the samskaras, which will create the situations for future lessons to be learned. All those are stored over there. And astral plane, there was only one body, but there again, Master Choa has taught us about the lower emotions and the higher emotions. So you can kind of conceive of again, the lower three subplanes and the upper four subplanes. So Master has told us about the chakras with the lower emotions and the higher emotions and so on. So we have that familiarity. And then we saw that this is from Master Choa's book Chakras. So there again, there is the depiction of the different bodies. And as we can see, they are interpenetrating. Yeah. And now we will go on to the next body, which is on the Buddhic plane. So we've looked at the physical plane, the astral, the mental, now the Buddhic or the intuitional plane. All right. So let's read from page 117, the second paragraph. Above the plane with which we have been dealing, that is the causal, the mental plane, lies one yet higher, sometimes called the plane of Turiya, the plane of Buddhi. Here, the vehicle of consciousness is the spiritual body, the Anandamay Kosha, or body of bliss, and into this yogis can pass, and in it taste the eternal bliss of that glorious world, and realize in their own consciousness the underlying unity, which then becomes to them a fact of experience and no longer just an intellectual belief. So one thing to note here is that this is, it's not a body like the others, like the physical body or the astral body of the incarnated soul, but this is now a body of the higher soul. Yeah. And you see, if you look at this slide now, this is the ordinary human. Can you see? It says human, and this is the ordinary human. Now, when you have a person who is highly spiritually developed, you can see now this is showing. Each of these is showing is how much consciousness at what plane. So, with highly developed souls, like we are talking about, like a holy master or somebody really very, like an avatar, their consciousness at the physical and astral planes is very small. Their consciousness is now mostly at the upper mental, the causal, and the Buddhic plane. And of course, it goes even higher to the nirvanic plane. Can you see in this slide? Okay, let's read further. So I'm starting in the middle of the, the page 118, somewhere in the middle. This is the gateway of initiation, and the man led through it by his master rises for the first time into the spiritual body and experiences in it the unity which underlies the diversity and the separateness of the physical world, which underlies the separateness of the astral plane and even of the mental region. When these are left behind and the man, clothed in the spiritual body, rises above them, he finds for the first time in his experience that separateness belongs only to the three lower worlds, that he is one with all others, and that without losing self consciousness, his consciousness can expand to embrace the consciousness of others, can indeed become one with them. This is the unity after which man is always yearning, the unity he has felt to be true and has vainly tried to realize on lower planes. There it is realized beyond his loftiest dreams, and all humanity is found to be one with his innermost self. So, the biggest experience when your consciousness comes to the Buddhic plane is of unity with all. Now, mind you, of course, this is not for ordinary people like us. This is a state which we may achieve temporarily when we have a very good meditation. Like you're doing the twin heart meditation, and then there is the master, chants the Om, and then he says, between the two Oms, be aware of the gap, and then he says, let go. Now, if you are able to be aware of the gap and the silence in the gap, the stillness in the gap, and you are able to let go while being aware of the gap, sometimes your consciousness may rise to the level of the Buddhic plane. And then that is where, number one, you feel tremendous bliss. And the second thing is, you have that experience of oneness with the entire universe, or, at least with everybody else, maybe with all beings. So this is really at a permanent level. So for us, this experience will be most likely temporary. But for a holy master, who we call a Paramahansa or a fully soul realized person, this is the normal state of consciousness. And usually it indicates that that soul now is beyond the rebirth, that whole process of rebirth. And the greatest experience you will see, or the greatest thing you will see of a person who is at this stage, is that constant, what should I say, experience of oneness, or this in that person's behavior, you will see that person is is feeling one with everyone else. Yeah. Now let's, my theory on how that happens. I think I've shown you this diagram earlier also. You see, at the physical plane, when you see now, each of these spokes is each of us. So maybe this spoke is me, and this spoke is Astha, and this spoke is someone else, and so on and so forth, Anjali and Mohini and Puja. So we are like different spokes here. Now, at the physical level, we see each of us as completely distinct. Yes, can you see that? We are completely distinct. I am separate, you are separate, you are separate, you are separate, you are separate. Now, this separation continues even at the astral level, even at the mental level. Can you see? There is still separation between two spokes. But when we come to the Buddhic level, you start seeing an overlap. Can you see that? Like this is me, and this is Astha, and this is Puja. There is overlap between our bodies at the Buddhic level. And when our consciousness is gone to that level, we experience this oneness. Now, it is not a theoretical thing. At our current level of consciousness, this is theoretical. It is a concept. Oh, we are one. Oh, we are one. But when we are able to successfully come to that level of consciousness, it is something we experience. That is the sort of the difference. You see, you can even see that usual example I gave. You look at these two fingers. These two fingers Physical plane, separate. Astral plane, separate. Mental plane, still separate. Yes? But when you come to the Buddhic plane and the higher planes, they start experiencing oneness with each other. Yeah? So, in the current stage of humanity, very few people at this level. And for us, that is the goal. We should be able to bring our consciousness and permanently keep it at this level. And that is, for that, Arhatic yoga is apparently the fastest and the safest and the best way. So, that is the importance of Arhatic yoga. Okay. So this was about the next level of the body. Not a lot of information. There's just a little bit given. Yeah. So next, then Madam Annie Besant, she talks about temporary bodies. Then she explains how they are made, why they are made, what is the purpose, and so on. So let's come to page 120. Let's read the first paragraph. She's explaining how it is made. How, highly evolved souls, they are able to take up temporary bodies. The man fashions his mind body, again, his, her, same thing. His mind body into the likeness of himself, shapes it into his own image and likeness, and is then in this temporary and artificial body free to traverse or travel the three planes. Which three planes? Physical, astral, mental. At will and rise superior to ordinary human limitations. So, what is an ordinary human limitation? I am right now in a spot, physical spot. I have a physical address right now. If I want to reach some place which is, let us say, 1000 kilometers away, it will take me a certain amount of time because I will have to find a means of transport, sit in that, and that will physically transport me. My limitation. But when a holy master takes on a temporary body, doesn't have the same, because it is an artificial body, it is not subject to gravity, it is not subject to the sort of physical limitations that our physical bodies are. So one moment that holy master may be present here and I will see, and another moment I don't know if where you are, but may appear in front of Puja or in Mohini or in front of Anjali. Why is that possible? Because their bodies are not, the normal physical bodies. Yeah. Okay. That this is that artificial body often spoken about in theosophical books, in which a person can travel from land to land, passing also into the world of mind, learning their new truths, gathering new experience, and bringing back to the waking consciousness the treasures thus collected. The advantage of using this higher body is that it is not subject to deception and glamour on the astral plane as is the astral body. So normally when we talk about travel, we talk about astral travel. But here, Madam Annie Besant, she is talking about these holy masters fashioning temporary bodies at the mental plane. And taking on matter from astral plane and etheric plane to give the appearance, the likeness of themselves. Because the problem is astral body can get affected by glamour, by Maya. But the mental body is higher than the astral body, it is not affected. And also, somebody who is able to have this ability, their astral bodies are already purified. They have already mastered the astral body. Even the mental body is mastered. Otherwise, this sort of ability, this power is not available. This power to create a artificial body is not available. And if you are fond of reading the spiritual literature, even so, in autobiography of a yogi, there are numerous stories where Yogananji talks about how his guru and another holy master, they met in the Himalayas, or they met here, or they met there. How is that happening? This is how it is happening. They are creating temporary bodies, and those temporary bodies are traveling. Even Master Choa has cited examples in his autobiography, Origin of Modern Pranic Healing and Arhatic Yoga. And I've heard one story by one of the senior students of Master Choa, where Master Choa himself appeared to that student. Of course, not in physical form, but it looked like him. But it was probably a temporary body. Okay, let's go on to page 121. So then there are other type of bodies which we will read here. Other temporary bodies are called by the name of Mayavi Rupa, but it seems better to restrict the term to the one just described. That's the one we talked about. A man may appear at a distance in a body which is really a thought form more than a vehicle of consciousness. Thought clothed in the elemental essence of the astral plane. These bodies are, as a rule, merely vehicles of some particular thought, some special volition. Volition. So the word here, volition, it means, act of will or a decision. And outside this, show no consciousness. They need only be mentioned in passing. For the sake of completeness, she has talked about this, but they are not related to our, interest in spiritual progress or spiritual development. Yeah. Okay, let's move on. So now we come to page 122, where she begins a discussion on the human aura. So let's read on page 122. We are now in a position to understand what the human aura in its fullest sense really is. It is the man himself manifest at once on the four planes of consciousness, and according to its development is his power of functioning on each. So, this is what is the entire thing, is the what we can call the aura, all the bodies put together. It's the combination, the compilation of all the bodies. It is the aggregate of his bodies, of his vehicles of consciousness. It is the form aspect of the man. So typically we may think only the physical body is the form aspect. But keep in mind, all these bodies are also made up of particles. They are just more subtle particles. The physical particles are the most gross, the most dense, and hence we can, touch and we can see and so on. But the others are also made up of matter. So they are also part of the overall form aspect of the soul. First and foremost is the spiritual body, visible in initiates, through which plays the living Atmic fire. This is the manifestation of the man on the Buddhic plane. So, the outermost is the soul aura, which is what is at this plane. This is comprised of particles at the Buddhic plane. I hope you remember the planes. The planes are created by combining matter and pure energy. They combine in different ratios. So more matter, less energy, we are at the denser, the lower levels, the lower planes. More energy, less and smaller particles of matter, that is the higher planes. So when we say higher plane, it means particles are smaller, energy in ratio, and more energy, less matter. Yeah? Then comes the causal body, his manifestation in the highest mental world, on the arupa levels of the plane of mind where the individual has his home. Next, the mind body belonging to the lower mental planes and the astral, etheric, and dense bodies in succession, each formed of the matter of its own region and expressing the man as he is in each. Yeah? Let's read, there's more explanation on page 123. So, the physical body is a is visible as a kind of dense crystallization in the center of the other bodies. The others permeating it. Permeating means interpenetrating and extending beyond its periphery, the physical being the smallest. So that is very well shown in this diagram. The physical is the innermost, the densest, and the smallest. All the others are inside the physical body, outside the physical body. Each successive energy body penetrates, interpenetrates all the other bodies. The astral comes next, showing the state of the karmic. Mind you, this is not karmic, but karmic nature. Karmic nature meaning, desires. Kama, the word means desires. Karmic nature that forms so great a part of the ordinary man, full of his passions, lower appetites, and emotions, differing in fineness in color as the man is more or less pure. Very dense in the grosser types, finer in the more refined, most delicate of all if the man is far advanced in his evolution. So, this slide also we have been seeing many times. We have been seeing this slide many times. As the person evolves, the causal body, the mental body, the astral body, all the bodies, they change. They change in what they look like, their colors, their opacity or transparency, their brilliance, and so on. That is what is being described here. Then the mind body, poorly developed in the majority but beautiful in many, varying its color according to the mental and moral type. Then the causal, scarcely visible in most, visible only under the most careful scrutiny. So slightly is it developed, so comparatively thin is its coloring, so feeble is its activity. So that is the ordinary person. But when we come to look at an advanced soul, meaning a highly developed soul, it is this and the one above it that at once strike the eye as being emphatically the presentation of the man. The one above it meaning the soul body or the spiritual body, which by the way is not shown in this diagram, but which is what we have been talking about earlier. The body at the intuitional or the Buddhic plane. Where was I? Radiant in light, most glorious and delicate in coloring, showing hues not only most pure and beautiful, but entirely different from the colors known on the lower planes. Additional colors, which show the growth of the man in those higher regions, in the loftier qualities and powers that exist there. So very often it is said that you cannot describe the causal and the Buddhic body of a highly developed soul, let's say of a great master. I mean, it is dazzling and so on, but because the colors there do not exist in the lower plane. So you have no words, you have no way of explaining those colors. Yeah. Okay, then comes a very interesting and some little practical part, where what master is called shields. So let's first read and then we'll discuss. Page 124, bilkul at the end. There is one practical point about the aura that I must mention. We can, to a great extent, protect ourselves against the incursions of thoughts from outside by making a spherical wall around us from the auric substance. This is what Master has called the auric shield. This is, it's taught in the psychotherapy class. Then there is the psychic self-defense class where these things are explained in great detail. Very, very helpful. The aura responds very readily to the impulse of thought, and if by an effort of the imagination we picture its outer edge as densified into a shell, we really make such a protective wall around us. Actually, that's the power of our mind. This shell will prevent the incoming of the drifting thoughts that fill the astral atmosphere, and thus will prevent the disturbing influence they exercise over the untrained mind. The drain on our vitality that we sometimes feel, especially when we come into contact with people who unconsciously vampirize their neighbors. Vampirize meaning who suck, vampires suck blood from their victims. So we talk about energy vampires, people who suck, positive energy from other people. You may have come in contact with somebody like that. You sit with that person or interact with that person and you start feeling drained. Why? That person is maybe subconsciously sucking all your energy. May also be guarded against by the formation of a shell. And anyone who's sensitive and who finds himself very exhausted by such a drain would be wise thus to protect himself. Such is the power of human thought on subtle matter, that to think of yourself within such a shell is to have it formed around you. So it is purely creation of these shields. Number one is very helpful, very important. Especially as we start progressing on the spiritual path, and as our aura is purified, we become more sensitive. In a sense, we become more delicate. Like, I'll give you a personal example. In my maybe one year into my arhatic practice, I used to find that I would get the severe, you know, pain in my head, in my neck, and it would go down to my spine, and my entire back would hurt, and it would be very, very severe. To the extent that, of course, healing we would do, I would take salt water bath, that would help, but I had to finally take a painkiller. It would be so much, and I used to work at that time, so it was intolerable. Then somehow one time this insight came. Every time I was getting a haircut, this pain episode would happen after that. And then I realized what was happening. So as some purification was happening, I was becoming more delicate, more sensitive. And the barber, he touches your head and he's very close. His aura is very close to your aura. So I started making shields after that. Every time I would get my hair cut, first I would make a shield, then the haircut, and then I would remove the shield. And this problem stopped altogether. So, I can tell you that this is so one thing to note is that it is a purely mental activity. Second thing is, I don't know if the instruction given here is sufficient, but if you have done the psychotherapy class, you already know about shields. If you haven't done the psychotherapy class, what are you waiting for? Learn it as soon as possible. Okay, now the rest of the chapter, not much, except that, she's telling us that our aura shows our stage of development and it changes as we evolve. And as it does that, it is providing a proof of life purpose. It is also pointing to the necessity, or rather the inevitability of spiritual development. That we have no choice, we have to develop. Yeah. Okay, I'll just read the last part on page 127. This is the message of hope brought by Theosophy to the Western world. A message by the Western world, because in the East, all this knowledge has already existed. So it is only applicable, largely applicable to the West, where, Western world, very material, very highly materialism, very high degree of materialism is there. In the East, in India and so on, we already have a very highly developed spiritual foundation. A message of universal emancipation from misery. Emancipation means freedom, like escape from or freedom. Not in dream, but in reality. Not in hope, but in certainty. So it's like a guarantee. Spiritual path, you see, Buddha has said Sarvam dukham. All is misery. So it's commonly translated as that human life means misery. As long as we live the ordinary material life, we identify with our bodies. But once we start progressing spiritually, that is the only guarantee against misery. That is and not only, the escape from misery, but a path which will lead us to constant, permanent bliss. Everyone who in his own life is striving to develop is, as it were, a fresh realization and enforcement of the message. Everywhere the first fruits are appearing, and the whole world shall one day be ripe for harvest and be ready to accomplish the purpose for which the Logos gave it birth, or what we can also call as the divine plan. All right. Okay, I think we can stop here.